Every day in the same silent square, she sat with a handful of grain in her hands. She fed the pigeons with an almost sacred care, as if each gesture carried a secret that only she could understand. But that morning something strange was in the air. Among hundreds of rapidly beating wings, one pigeon stood out, carrying in its beak something that shouldn't be there. A letter no one expected. A letter capable of changing everything she believed her life had been like up until then. She lived alone in a small corner house where time seemed to pass more slowly than anywhere else in the city. The weathered walls held memories mingled with old photographs, childhood scribbles, and recollections she revisited frequently, as if trying to converse with the past. The silence within that house wasn't just the absence of noise. It was a weight, a constant presence that tightened her chest and reminded her every day of what she was missing. Every morning she rose early, even half-heartedly, just to get dressed and go out. There was no news, no company, just her, the wind beating against the windows, and the feeling that something important had been ripped from her life long ago. The world outside continued to spin, but inside that house it felt as if time had stopped, keeping everything suspended in a never-ending wait. The only time she felt anything resembling company was in the nearby square. There she always sat on the same bench, a handful of grains in her hands, waiting for her little feathered friends to visit. The pigeons, curious and trusting, already recognized her. They flew around, landed near her, approaching without fear, as if they knew her heart and the emptiness she was trying to fill. Each grain thrown to the ground was a gesture of hope, almost a silent ritual that brought some comfort. And it was in this setting of simplicity and silence that her routine unfolded. She watched the hustle and bustle of the square, children running, people coming and going, dogs barking. Everything seemed distant, as if it belonged to a world that was no longer hers. And yet there was a strange magic to the place. The distant chime of a bell, the rustle of leaves in the wind, the flutter of pigeons' wings. All of this created a soundtrack that connected her to something greater, something she couldn't name. But behind this peaceful routine lurked a deep, ancient pain, a void that no gesture of kindness or smile from strangers could fill. It was the absence of the son who had disappeared so many years ago. The one she had cradled in her arms, taught to walk and dream, and who one day, without warning, had vanished from her life. Each day without news was like a silent sting in the heart, a cruel reminder of what had been lost, but also of what could still be found. And even amidst this sadness, she maintained hope, almost secretly. A silent hope that spoke loudest on the cold mornings in the square as she watched the pigeons eat from her hands. The hope that somehow one day something would change, that the world, which seemed so distant and indifferent, would bring back what she loved most. What she didn't yet know was that the universe, in an unexpected way, was about to intervene. Amidst the hundreds of wings beating in the air on that ordinary morning, something extraordinary was about to happen. A simple gesture, a small messenger with a burden impossible to ignore. Something that would change her life forever. And as she looked up at the gray sky, without imagining that the impossible was coming, a question hung in the air, unanswered. Could a simple pigeon carry the key to a reunion that she no longer dared to dream of? It was an open wound, the kind that never completely heals, that remains pulsing in the silence of each day. No one knew for sure what had happened. The boy she had cradled in her arms and taught to dream had left young, in search of a better life, leaving behind only memories and a broken maternal heart. But she had never heard from him again. Neighbors whispered whenever she passed, "Maybe he's lost to the world. Maybe he no longer exists." Each word echoed like a blow, but she never believed it. She could never believe that someone who grew up in her lap could simply disappear from the world's memory. For her, absence didn't mean the end. It meant waiting, patience, and silent hope, woven into every routine, into every small gesture that no one noticed. Every day, as she tossed the grains on the ground for the pigeons, she murmured a prayer, simple words yet charged with emotion. May he be alive, may he still remember me. And as the pigeons pecked at the grains, it seemed she was conversing with fate itself, trying to wring from the universe an answer that never came. Each morning it was repeated like a ritual, a way of keeping hope alive, even when the world seemed to have forgotten her and him. Her heart was heavy with uncertainty. Each year without news was like another brick in the wall of longing, a wall that seemed to grow endlessly, separating her from the life she imagined with her son. There were days when the silence was deafening, when even the sound of the wind seemed muffled, and all that remained was the echo of memories, childhood laughter, small arguments, tight hugs that now existed only in memory. She saw other mothers in the square, some with children in their arms, others talking and laughing. Their happiness cut like a razor, reminding her of the lingering absence, but also reinforcing something inside her. She couldn't give up, couldn't allow time to erase hope. There were nights when she dreamed of him, vivid dreams full of colors and voices that disappeared upon waking, leaving an even greater void. And yet, something drove her to continue, day after day, on that same bench, with the same pigeons, with the same grains. Every gesture, every sigh, every glance up at the sky carried a silent message. I still believe, I still hope. And then, in that seemingly endless cycle, something began to change. A subtle detail. A pigeon that always seemed distant, now landing closer than usual. A gesture that might otherwise go unnoticed, but which, in that moment, carried the feeling that something unexpected was about to happen. Her heart, so accustomed to pain, began to beat differently. There was a tension and anticipation in the air, as if the world were about whisper a secret that could change everything. She didn't know it yet, but the hope she'd silently carried for so many years was about to become something real, a revelation capable of breaking down the wall of longing and rekindling the life she'd so desperately believed still existed. And so, in that instant, between the beating of wings and the whispering of the wind, the impossible began to take shape before her eyes, promising a reunion that she had long since stopped dreaming of. It was on. A cold morning, when the sky was gray and the square seemed suspended in time, almost empty, that something she had never imagined happened. The wind blew hard, dragging dry leaves across the ground, and the silence of that place which she knew so well seemed to set the stage for something extraordinary. Among dozens of pigeons scurrying about, one stood out. It lumbered toward her, flapping its wings awkwardly, as if carrying not just an object, but also a message from destiny. In its beak, it held something that immediately caught her eye, a small, yellowed envelope, worn by time and the invisible journeys it had made to get there. She stopped, her heart racing, unable to believe what she was seeing. Every muscle in her body felt tense, as if she sensed this moment carried a weight far greater than anything she had experienced in recent years. With trembling hands, she took the letter from the pigeon's beak. The morning chill disappeared in the sudden heat that surged through her chest. Calming her breathing, she opened the envelope carefully, almost as if every movement might shatter a miracle about to happen. And then, as she unfolded the paper, her eyes filled with immediate recognition. The handwriting was his, the son who had disappeared so many years ago, the one she had so feared she had lost forever. The tears came before she even finished the first line. Each word she read seemed to touch her heart with overwhelming force, mixing relief, pain, and joy in a single wave of emotion. He was alive, far away but alive, and life, in a way she had never imagined, had finally shown signs of returning. The letter contained words that tore through his longing and filled the void of years. They were pleas for forgiveness, confessions of fear, accounts of moments when he had missed her, and promises that, despite everything, an unbreakable bond still existed. And among those lines, the phrase that touched his heart most, "I will return home." She felt in her throat a mixture of disbelief and hope that left her breathless. Every syllable seemed to pulse with the force of all the days of waiting, all the mornings in the square, all the silent prayers. It was as if the universe had conspired silently for years to bring this exact moment on this gray morning into her life. The wind seemed to fall silent for a few seconds, and the pigeons that had previously been flying restlessly settled around her, as if they too understood the importance of that moment. The world around her vanished. All that existed was her, the letter, and the certainty that life could still surprise in sublime ways. And in that moment, as she held the envelope tightly to her chest, she understood something essential, that hope never dies, even when times seem cruel, and that miracles can arrive in the most unexpected moments, in ways no one could ever imagine. A reunion that seemed impossible was about to happen, a future that had previously existed only in dreams now began to unfold before her, with the promise that nothing, not time nor distance, could erase the love between mother and son. And just when she thought she would never have answers, that fate had been too cruel, that the years of waiting and silence had consumed all the hope left in her heart, life, in a silent and almost incomprehensible way, decided to surprise her, not with grand gestures nor with obvious signs, but with something so simple and delicate that it seemed tailor-made to touch her soul. A simple pigeon, one she fed every day, one that had become her silent companion, her silent confidant. She could never have imagined that this small bird, which had so often perched near her bench, pecking at grain without any urgency, would carry something far greater than any human message, something that would change her life forever. The pigeon approached cautiously, almost hesitantly. Each wing beat seemed like a warning, a harbinger that something extraordinary was about to happen. And then, with a gesture both natural and charged with meaning, it landed in front of him. In its beak it held a small, yellowed envelope, worn with age, that seemed to contain not only paper and ink, but also years of longing, pain, and silent hope. She reached out hesitantly, feeling the weight of the moment. The world seemed to have stopped. The wind, which had previously blown incessantly, ceased for a few seconds. The sounds of the city grew distant. Even the surrounding pigeons remained still, as if sensing the importance of the moment. Every muscle in her body was tense, and at the same time, every fiber of her being seemed to vibrate with the certainty that something she had been waiting for years was about to reveal itself. When he finally took the envelope, his hands trembled with emotion. It wasn't just a piece of paper. It was hope concentrated in physical form, the link that could restore to her life something that seemed lost forever. She stared at the envelope, unable to contain herself, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it was about to leap out of her chest, and took a deep breath, preparing herself to discover what fate was about to show her. And in that moment, an avalanche of feelings washed over her. Disbelief, relief, fear, and joy, all mixed together in a single heartbeat. Because she knew deep down that that letter was not just an ordinary message. It was the key to reuniting with the son who had disappeared so many years ago. Proof that all the suffering, all the waiting had not been in vain. The pigeon, as if understanding the magnitude of what it had just delivered, slowly flew away, flapping its wings and disappearing into the gray sky. And she stood there, motionless, clutching the envelope to her chest, feeling every second of that moment as if it were an eternity. What was inside that letter could change everything, transform years of pain into a future of hope and a new beginning. And so, as the world continued to move, she realized something essential. Destiny, even silent and mysterious, always finds a way to return what life tried to take. A simple gesture, a pigeon she fed every day, became the messenger of a reunion that for so many years seemed impossible. Her heart, now racing and full of anticipation, knew that life was about to reveal something greater, something that could finally transform pain into joy, waiting into reunion, longing into embrace. In that moment, the envelope still trembled in her hands, and the echo of the pigeon's wings filled the silent square. She understood something she had never fully grasped before. No routine, no seemingly small or repetitive gesture is in vain. Every morning spent there feeding the pigeons, every silent prayer whispered, every tear shed in the solitude of her home, all of it had paved the way for the miracle unfolding before her. The emptiness of the days, which for so many years seemed endless, was filled with a profound and transformative certainty. He was alive. Not only alive, but he still loved her, still remembered her, still carried in his heart the bond that nothing could erase. And in that moment he felt that all the pain, all the waiting, and all the longing had been, in some way, a preparation, a silent training of the heart to recognize and embrace joy when it finally arrived. And there, between wings and seeds, between the whisper of the wind and the rustle of leaves, she realized something universal. Hope is not something that fades away. Hope always finds a way to return. It can hide in small gestures, in discreet routines, or even in unlikely objects, like a dove or a yellowed letter, but sooner or later it returns. And when it returns, it transforms everything around it, illuminating the darkest corners of the soul and bringing to life a sense that the impossible can, indeed, become reality. Sometimes life speaks silently, gently, almost without us realizing clear signs, unexpected miracles, like a letter no one expected, a meeting that seemed impossible, or a gesture that completely changes history. Life then reminds us that we should never underestimate the small acts of love, patience, and perseverance. They are what shape destinies, connect hearts, and create twists and turns that seemed unthinkable. And looking up at the gray sky that was beginning to lighten, she smiled through her tears, feeling a peace she hadn't felt in a long time. Life, with all its complexity and mystery, had rewarded her for her silent love, her daily care, and the faith she never abandoned. Every simple gesture, every detail that many would consider trivial, had become a bridge to joy, to reunion, to the happiness that had seemed distant for so many years. This moment reminds us of something we can all apply to our own lives. Never underestimate the power of small gestures, patience, and hope. Every act of kindness, every daily routine, every silent prayer or positive thought can, in the future, become the catalyst for unexpected miracles. It's an invitation to look around and appreciate what seems simple, because simplicity is often what creates the most extraordinary moments. Application for the public. Think now, what gesture, routine, or silent attitude in your life have you been ignoring, but which could be paving the way for a great reunion, an opportunity, or a miracle? Share your experience or something you still hope for in life in the comments. We want to hear your story. If this story touched your heart, leave a like to show that hope still inspires. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow stories that move you and remind you that small gestures can change everything.